Up next, border battles. A predator stalks the border frontier near San Diego.
They were very, very vicious, attacking very helpless and docile people.
Cunning and ruthless, he holds a secret behind the bandit mask of El Loco, the crazy one.
His group was particularly vicious people, not only taking their money, but raping women also.
And the mission of one man is to stop this killer, even at the risk of his own life.
It kind of became a personal thing with me. I wanted that guy. I wanted Loco.
The border, the lawless frontier between Mexico and the U.S., where human traffickers, drug cartels, bandits, and killers ply their trade. And facing this invading army is a thin line of valiant U.S. law enforcement officers. Their stories now on Border Battles. On the border, the sun and sea image of San Diego, California gives way to a wasteland. But even more deadly predators roam this terrain. In search of a better life in the United States, border crossers entered the hunting territory of vicious killers, rapists, and bandits.
There were different bandit groups that worked out there. Most of the ones that we call gangs were made up of primarily dopers, users of whatever, heroin, etc. And they needed the quick money to be able to buy their drugs. They were very, very vicious, attacking these very helpless and docile people.
Manny Lopez heads an elite squad of San Diego police known as the Border Area Robbery Force. Its acronym, B.A.R.F. B.A.R.F. sounds like a joke. Its mission is not.
There was a section called E2, which was the second closest to the port of entry, and that area was worked by several bandits, but one particular gang of bandits that was controlled by a guy called El Loco, which means the crazy one in Spanish. And his group was particularly vicious people, not only taking their money, but raping women also.
At times, we would stop and talk with illegal aliens, and they would tell us, don't go to that area over there because that's El Loco's area, and we hear there's a lot of robberies, and they'll assault you, and they'll leave you for dead. So stay away from that area. That's all we needed to hear. We wanted to catch robbers, and so we moved our activity over to that area.
I think the only time I ever felt fear was one of the times when we went into El Loco's territory.
You got some clothing?
Knowing the MO of the border bandits has taught the robbery force that the way to arrest them is bait and switch by appearing to be aliens themselves waiting to cross the line.
We dressed down, dressed as illegal aliens, wore a couple layers of clothing like most of these individuals wore.
Ready? Let's go.
I expected the very worst every time we went out. And fortunately, we were trained to expect the very worst.
Expecting the worst is part of the robbery force's disguise as they go undercover looking like illegal aliens down to the cigarettes they smoke and pretending to be lost, hungry, and vulnerable while packing some big sticks.
The weapons that we carried at the time were revolvers. I personally carried a Smith & Wesson 6-shot and a Colt revolver with 5 shots. And there were times when I emptied almost both guns.
Disguised as illegal aliens, the robbery force prowls the boundary line for weeks. Prohibited by international law from crossing the border, they stay on American soil, hunting. They are the goat staked out for the man-eater, hoping it will strike. And at last, El Loco comes to them.
The first time that I met El Loco was in the E2 area. There were 4 of us out there that night, and what happened is that one guy came up and started talking to us. We thought he was just going to be a guide. He was kind of feeling us out. We talked for a little bit, and he left, and then brought back some more people.
The robbery force soon learns that El Loco is probing their defenses with his scout. When the scout returns, he brings hard men with him. The band encircles the 4 officers, and the officers know that this is the band they've been waiting for. Out of the darkness steps a man hidden behind a ski mask.
The last guy was El Loco, came over himself. He was wearing a ski mask and he had a knife, and by that time, other guys had started to pull out knives. I remember looking at him, and my reaction was, what the heck is this? You know, why is this guy wearing a ski mask? He's got a knife. Yeah, obviously he's going to be a robber. He's got a knife in his hand, but they didn't make the approach right away.
Armed bandits are positioned to pounce, but like practiced predators, they wait for the prey to move first.
We knew what they were going to do. They were there to rob us. That was it.
Undercover in bandit no man's land, 4 officers of San Diego's border area robbery force are encircled by the robber band of El Loco. The bandits have made the mistake of crossing onto American soil and can be arrested. But law alone will not blunt the knives in their hands. Now, Manny Lopez and his men have to take the offensive. Manny's signal for the robbery force to jump the bandit band is their own humorous acronym, B.A.R.F, a word not known to El Loco and his men.
I knew it was going to be bad, so I just said B.A.R.F, and then everybody starts taking people down.
B.A.R.F launches each officer onto the nearest bandit. In the melee, El Loco makes a break for the border and Mexico. But Manny Lopez isn't letting his prize get away.
El Loco runs, and I ran after him. And we had to go up a little grade because there was a big slit in the fence that he could get through. And then he was running, and he fell. And so I thought to myself, great, you know, because now I got this guy, but then I fell. I was carrying a Colt snub nose in my hand, and the cylinder opened up, and I could feel the bullets coming out, but I closed it real fast, and I got back up, and then I started chasing him again, and he was in such a hurry that he hit the fence and bounced back. And I thought, oh, I really got you now. And then as I came up on him, he went through the hole.
El Loco gets away from Manny Lopez and back into Mexico. Worse, El Loco now knows undercover officers wait in the border darkness. El Loco has slipped away from Manny Lopez and his task force once. But Manny is determined the next opportunity will end differently.
That's where the illegals come through.
El Loco won't jump the border, but that doesn't stop his terrorizing helpless border crossers. And for months, anger and frustration grow in the robbery force. There are even rumors that El Loco is hiding not just behind his mask, but behind Mexico's judicial police.
He was basically robbing people with impunity. He was too paranoid to come into the United States, yet he was being left to do whatever he wanted on the Mexican side. If the rumors that he was working with the state judicial paying them off were true, and they probably were, then nobody was going to touch him on the Mexican side. I'm sure that he felt that was his territory. I felt it was our territory. This is the Border Crime Task Force territory, not yours. And we're going to take care of business. And if you think you can get away from us, you're wrong, because if he thought he was so bad, we were badder. It kind of became a personal thing with me. I wanted that guy. I wanted Loco.
Night after night, Manny Lopez waits for El Loco to make that one mistake.
We're walking along the fence, and we get close to the E2 area, and there's Loco again.
It's El Loco, but does he know it's the same cop who chased him over the border?
He came up to the fence, and he asked me for a cigarette. And I was trying to figure out a way to get him to come over. So I gave him a cigarette through the chain link fence. While I'm talking to him, he was grabbing with his right hand the chain link fence. And I remember thinking the only way I could get him maybe was to grab his finger, which wasn't going to do anything, but I wanted this guy so badly that maybe I'd at least break his finger, if nothing else. And then he said, you know, okay, like good luck or whatever, and he faded away.
Being so close to his quarry only spurs Lopez on. He will bring El Loco down.
In order to catch El Loco, I had to come up with something very unusual because he was not going to come into the United States. And we had orders that we could not go into Mexico. So what I did is one afternoon, I went out to the border. And I looked at the Mexican side, and I looked at the American side, and I found out that in actuality, the fence is not the border.
Here is the answer. A geographical error that puts the border fence inside the cement markers of the international boundary. El Loco doesn't have to cross the fence for Manny Lopez to arrest him. A large 20-foot drainage pipe is a crossing point for illegals into America. But now, Lopez knows it is already in America. This is where he'll set the trap for El Loco.
So I figured this is how I can get the guy. What we're going to do is sit in this drainage pipe and wait for him to come and rob us. And then we could get him because he would still be in the United States.
Lopez and his robbery force spring into action.
I thought that night we were going to get him. In fact, I was positive we were going to get him because at the briefing, I put target El Loco on the chalkboard that night. So I was very sure we were going to get him. The plan in order to catch El Loco was really simple. What I did, I positioned myself on the south end of the pipe. So I was the closest to Mexico.
Lopez has fellow officers Tony Puente and Eddie Cervantes with him inside the pipe, while a fourth officer waits at the U.S. end.
What was going to happen when Loco came up, he would just grab me and I'd go out of the drainage pipe, and then Eddie would come out, and then Tony would come out, you know, and we confront these guys, and we'd arrest them.
We sat there probably for 2 or 3 hours. This tube that we were in stunk to high heaven. People had defecated, people had urinated. I believe there was probably some dead animals in there too. After 2 or 3 hours, you're just bored. You're tired of counting your fingers. You can't even see them. No more conversation, no more whispers. You're just sitting there. And you kind of look back at each other and you see silhouettes. In an instant, look over, Manny's gone. Where the hell's Manny go? Where'd he go?
Manny Lopez and his San Diego robbery force team have been crouching on the Mexican border for hours in a foul sewer pipe, waiting for the vicious masked bandit, El Loco, to step into their trap. But the trap is sprung on them.
We expected for bandits to approach us and make a demand, you know, intimidate us or scare us or make a demand for money.
But El Loco's like a dog that bites without barking. And in an instant, Manny Lopez is ripped from the pipe.
I didn't even see him disappear. I mean, I was right next to him. But I didn't even see when he got pulled out.
When I get yanked out from the pipe, I look, and El Loco has me with his left hand. He's got my forearm. And he's got a knife in his right hand. And I just looked at him, and initially I felt great. Because I got you, you know? I mean, that's how I felt at that moment. But I looked, and right to my left was a guy holding a rifle. And then there was another guy, I didn't see anything in his hand. Then there's a guy holding a gun. And so what happened is that I went, oh, I said, you know, here was my joy. In a fraction of a second went to, oh,
Manny Lopez is riding the Tiger. Even if his fellow officers hear him, El Loco and his bandits have the tunnel blocked. It's 4-1 against Lopez, with gun barrels pointed at him. In a slow-motion nightmare, Lopez tallies the odds. One bandit holds a handgun, another a rifle. It's too dark to see what might be in the hands of the third. And the blade of El Loco's knife gleams. Lopez feels the .38 special in his waistband. He goes for the most obvious threat.
So what I did is I yanked his hand, grabbed my gun, and I shot at the guy with the rifle first. Because I figured if anybody's going to kill me, it's going to be this guy. So I went, boom, I went to Loco, shot him. And then I went to the guy with the gun, shot at him. And then at the end, the last guy I shot at was the guy that I didn't see anything at.
Manny's yelling and screaming. And then all of a sudden, we're out. We're out, and the fight is on, and the shots are fired. And in the darkness, it's chaos. You don't know whether you want to duck for cover, you want to run to the nearest silhouette and try to tackle or arrest that person. You don't know if it's your partner. It was just mass confusion.
Amid shouts and gunshots, El Loco sprints south.
Now, I turned back to Loco, and he was now running, trying to get away, and we went into this small canyon full of trash, and then I knocked him down, and lucky for me, I landed on top of him.
El Loco makes the mistake of resisting, and Manny Lopez unleashes a year of anger and frustration.
He was pretty strong. He hit me a couple of times that were pretty good, but now he's been shot, and I have the advantage that I have a gun in my hand and hitting him in the head, so that really hurts. I must have hit him, I don't know how many times, but he was still fighting me. And he's been shot, he's losing blood, so that he just gave up. And so what he gave up, I gave up.
In the midst of the gunfight, Lopez follows El Loco into Mexico in hot pursuit. Now he has to drag him back to U.S. soil to arrest the masked bandit.
I saw Manny dragging him back to the U.S. side, Assistant Manny. Once we got El Loco over on the American side and laid him out on the dirt road, Manny's yelling, "Cease fire" to everybody.
Cease fire! Cease fire!
Then we called for assistance to back us up.
But this gunfight is not over yet.
As we're there looking at El Loco and all these things for a couple of minutes, people start shooting at us. And some of them, you could hear the hitting the fence.
A year of undercover work disguised as vulnerable illegal aliens and a firefight on the border has won the prize of El Loco for Manny Lopez and his men.
I was lucky that I hit maybe 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4 for sure, and Loco was hit in the hip.
But Lopez's shots are not the only ones fired that night. And as they arrest El Loco, they begin to take fire. Like the cavalry, the U.S. Border Patrol arrives to aid the robbery force. and they chase off the gunman into the scrub hills. The last shots have been fired in the border battle with El Loco. One last mystery lies in the story of El Loco. Who is behind the mask?
We all wondered who El Loco was and why he always wore a ski mask. So obviously when we brought him back, we wanted to see who he was, what he looked like.
When El Loco finally gave up, I was still on top of him, and it was dark out there. And so when I took it off, he was just blood that I could see, just blood on his face. Ernie told me later, I think he told all of us, that El Loco was an escapee from Wambaugh prison. And that was the reason that this paranoid guy wore the ski mask out there, so nobody would recognize him.
El Loco's crimes were mostly in Mexico, where he escaped justice. But not in the U.S., where he's returned in shackles to the United States Penitentiary in Lompoc, California. After 19 months on the border, facing invaders, the Border Area Robbery Force is disbanded in the late 1970s because their work is deemed too dangerous. During the time they operated, the force, with the funny name of B.A.R.F, arrested more than 300 criminals. But the one they remember best, or worst, is the masked bandit known as El Loco.
What we did was totally different and new. And our mission, the objective of the Border Crime Task Force, or B.A.R.F as it was called, was to go capture bad guys that are preying on undocumented aliens in the city of San Diego. So when this guy is working with impunity, basically, and there's two chickens to come over on this side because he knows he's going to face us, it became extra personal. Everybody that we apprehended, it was our mission to do. This guy was just a notch above everybody else.
If you